this is Cameron, and welcome to the practice log. Well, it's a night session, finally. It's been a little while since one of those, I think. Alright, well, we have a lot to do today, so let's go ahead and jump into it, shall we? Back to the old grindy-windy. Yeah, alright, so we got some pretty interesting stuff for today. I'm just lying to your face. Yeah, we got some interesting new stuff today. It's gonna be different from the last one. So here's the deal. The Morel Movement 2, we're gonna be working on that. You know, I'm just trying to get that down. Probably gonna play through Lamentos tomorrow, just because I haven't done that in a couple of days, and I want to retain it, because that is our samba. Yeah, other than that, how are you doing? Hope you're doing well. Thanks for tuning in. Alright, I think that's everything for the most part. I mean, I just filed my nails. I mentioned earlier that I raised my action, finally, so there shouldn't be buzzing, so we'll actually see how the Morel sounds with that, because that was the buzzy one because of the drop D. So I actually have a string of comments that I want to talk about, and they're relating to, again, the Segovia Masterclass. Whoa, there were some interesting comments on it. So I want to just go through, maybe take a look at a few of them. A lot of you have been quoting Picasso, which I think is appropriate for this channel. We do high art here. That's what we're all about. So Picasso is a part of that. I'm just kidding. This is like deranged, I know. Alright, well, so I'll start with this one. This one's from Heidi, friend of the channel. How's it going? So this is a Picasso quote. Learn the rules like a pro so you can break them like an artist. Yes, very true. Yeah, and that's kind of my whole goal with the music theory videos, is just to like learn the rules, and the dynamic advice I'm giving you based off of the analysis that I've been doing. That's not something that I came up with. That's something that my teachers taught me. So I'm just kind of showing you that. That's kind of like your basic way of applying dynamics. Like after you analyze it, like emphasize the weird stuff and then get quieter on the home base stuff. You know, those are like the rules. Which I guess, like, saying rules in music, it's easy to go down a rabbit hole of saying that there are no rules, but it's helpful if we establish rules for certain genres, like for classical and whatever kind of music. I've also heard if you copy someone else, you also copy their mistakes, which I replied to this already and said not to worry about that. At least when it comes to interpretation stuff. Like, first there's like your own explorative learning where you're taking in any information, and if you're new to a subject, it's hard to really have any like scrutiny for that information because you don't have anything to base it on yet. I don't think learning mistakes is the worst thing ever. Like, I think that you kind of need to in order to develop your scrutiny, so it's not a big deal. We can look at music in two different ways. Like, there's the interpretation side and then there's the actual technical side of things. Learning technical mistakes, that's kind of a drag. I feel like my technique didn't really develop until like year 9 or so. If you watch me play guitar as like a teen, my fingers were still just as fast and everything. I could still shred scales, but if you actually looked at my hand, all my alignment was out of whack and everything didn't look so good. And that's all stuff that I fixed in college once I had my teacher. So I don't know, like, did it hold me back that much? Learning incorrect technique for a long time? Like, maybe. I don't think it really mattered. As long as you keep trying to fix it, it'll be okay. What am I talking about? I don't even know. Oh yeah, and then the second one. Yeah, if you're just copying interpretation, I mean, interpretation is just decisions that you can make. So even if you learn something, you can always decide to just not do it later. Like, that's the beauty of knowledge. You don't have to use your knowledge all the time. Like, even when I'm writing music, like, I can choose to make a chord progression super functional, or I can choose to not and like kind of tap into how I wrote chord progressions like when I was a kid, where it was more just kind of random. I think there's value in both of those things. That's like a fear that I notice people have. They think that the more music theory they learn, the more they'll lose that like uniqueness about like the music that they write now. So, you know, in short, don't worry about it. It'll be all right. Is that okay? Now the next one, Bach on Track, friend of the channel, answered a few of your questions. Also, you said good artists borrow, great artists steal. How would you relate this to interpretation? I'm gonna pretend like you said, how would I relate that to everything? Where do I even want to start with that? Okay, so stealing stuff is really important. Not only is it important for interpretation, and that's like a thing that I talked about earlier. I think it's kind of blown out of proportion when you're copying somebody, like the fear of sounding exactly like them, because it's just simply not going to happen. By the time you're actually able to copy somebody perfectly, you're pretty much a fully fledged artist who's like making their own decisions. You're allowed to have people that you rely on for like the framework. I think that's kind of how we evolve as musicians, and like music evolves over generations. Like, we have legends that we rely on, and then we kind of change stuff and make them our own, and then so on, and then you become a legend, hopefully, if you're lucky. It relates to composition as well. Like, there are so many stories, like I can't give you any specific specific names right now, but you could say like Tchaikovsky, for example. When he was taking like composition classes, I bet you his teacher gave him a symphony, and this is a really common strategy I've heard like from other composers, is you just take the structure of a symphony and then you just change the harmony and all the notes, and you keep the rhythm and the structure, and it's essentially like your symphony, like you changed everything, which it sounds like kind of a cheap like copy of something, right? But it's just an exercise to get you comfortable with how a symphony might be structured. It's kind of like the equivalent of playing with like the greatest, just to try to get to their level. I've gone through like phases of my life where I'm really into chess, okay? And I would play with friends and stuff, and I never really got any better. And I would even play with my dad, who was like a little bit better than me, but I never really felt like I got that much better. When I really got better at chess, it was when I started watching chess tournaments with like the best in the world, like Magnus Carlsen and stuff. And I would watch their games, and I would see these like nearly perfect games just unfold, and I would just get used to how they start and just kind of how things moved around. And I remember I did that for like a few months where I was just kind of like casually into chess, and I would play on chess.com. I'm not going to post my link, I'm never on there anymore. But I remember coming home one weekend, and my dad and I started playing chess, and I'm used to him beating me like pretty consistent. Like he would beat me like 9 out of 10 times. After watching all those high level tournaments, not only did I annihilate him, but I beat him by truly forcing pieces from him. Like it wasn't mistakes that he made or anything. I was just playing in a way that allowed for me to corner him really easily, because I was watching like how these professionals would move, and I just moved like that, and I found that it would always set me up with the advantage, when before I would move kind of randomly based on my own intuition, and it was fine, like it was kind of a neutral move, but it never really set me up. But the way they moved, it always set me up. So I'd find that I'd always be in a position to force a piece from him. And I remember he was surprised too, and we were like, all right, let's play again. And then just the same thing, I just did the exact same stuff. It was just no contest. And if he's watching, you remember, I'm pretty sure I beat him a third time. And then in the fourth time, he managed to snag an advantage. And then he was like done after that. He was like, oh, like, all right, I won the last one. But I remember that because that was so unusual. I would have never ever beat him 3 times in a row like that. I was beating him so much, I almost like started kind of feeling bad. I was like, oh my god, like I really got a lot better at chess really fast. And it was all from essentially playing with like the greatest. And it's the same thing with music, like in composition, taking a score and just changing the notes just to get comfortable with the structure and making it your own. And then you'll find if you go to actually compose a symphony after that, it'll be structured kind of similarly because that's what you're used to. And you're composing something like a Mozart symphony or something similar that you might aspire to write like. And it's the same thing with dynamics too. Like you can copy the dynamics exactly. And if you're able to copy like a Segovia recording like precisely, and people recognize it as like, oh, you sound like Segovia. Once you can do that, you really have the power to do whatever you want now. If you can play like Segovia, you certainly don't have to. You now just have all the options that Segovia had. And Segovia picked his way of playing, but you don't have to play like that. But once you have those skills, you can do whatever you want, is my point. You know what? I'm gonna cut it off there, but I'm about to practice, as you might expect. That's what happens in these things. Let's get to practicing. Y'all will let me know if I'm getting like really incoherent, I hope. Don't just sit back and let my mind rot. Like there could be a carbon monoxide leak or something. Right now my carbon monoxide thing doesn't have a battery in it because it was chirping. I still need to get a new battery for it. So if I'm ever like really not making sense, I would appreciate if you guys are like, hey, did you put a new battery in that thing? You're sounding a little crazy right now. So, just let me know. Alright, but for now, I've been talking for a while, so I just need to get to Pisiaractus. So, yeah. I've been practicing long enough. So, I am feeling pretty good about the first and third movement, and I made good progress in the second movement too. Let me bring you closer. Alright, here's my plan. So I'm going to play the third movement for you. Excuse me. A racer. A race driver, apparently. I'm going to play the third movement. I'm going to go slower than the last time I played it, though, and I'm just going to try to make it through everything, almost like an actual performance. So I'm going to try to play it well. So, here we go. That wasn't that much slower. That was also like take 3.5-ish. I don't know, the first take was just uninspired. The second take I went a little too hard and I kept messing up, and then that one was more of like an in-between. We're getting through it. I think that's probably a fine speed for it though, and then I think I'm gonna take the first movement a little slower going forward too, because it's actually not written that fast. David Russell's just a speed demon when he plays it. It's not, it doesn't, in the score it says that it's not that fast. Oh yeah. Hello, Toes. What'd you think of that? This is the weird part of the night. Let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. Hey, yeah, that was a pretty fun one, right? Well, you know, if you made it this far, be sure to subscribe, leave a like, all that stuff. Hey, want some guitar lessons? Yeah, well, if you do, check the description and you can get some guitar lessons, from me specifically. Okay. Anything else? Oh yeah, if you have any questions or comments, you know, be sure to leave them and I'll answer them in the chair. Alright, well, that's pretty much everything. I'll see you tomorrow.